Today, I want to talk a bit more about how you can leverage Connect to integrate maybe applications or services that you run within your company using the same mechanisms that make it easy to build an add-on. And one of the examples that I'm going to show is how we use the same principles to build the integration between HipChat and Bitbucket. To start with, maybe a quick, I don't know, how many of you have built an add-on, not the Atlassians? No one? One? Two? Yeah. All right, so I'm going to give you a very brief overview of what Connect is so that you can kind of place some of the concepts that I'm going to talk about later on a bit more into how this actually looks like technically. So where's Connect coming from? We had the Atlassian plugin system that we refer to as P2 often, which was a really, really powerful platform to build extensions to products. But that system, as powerful as it is, comes with a couple of drawbacks. So whatever add-on you write has to be written in Java using the same technologies and stacks that JIRA and Confluence has. So it's a JIRA Spring kind of OSGI application. And it will use the same resources as JIRA and Confluence itself. So if the add-on consumes a lot of CPU, that means there's less CPU available for JIRA. Same goes for memory and vice versa. If JIRA is very busy doing something, then your add-on will get less of that time. And those add-ons also have access to all data, so there's no implicit permission model what can be accessed through the Java APIs. And so those are kind of some of the reasons why, especially for on-demand, for a cloud offering, we needed a different solution, which is Connect. So we take that add-on out of the process. It runs as a separate service. You can think of it as a microservice. And the only interaction between the product and the add-on is always through HTTPS. That has a lot of advantages because it is a separate process. You can scale it independently. You don't have to scale the entire JIRA instance. So if your add-on is performing very long-running operations, that can be handled very well outside of JIRA. And these add-ons, given that all the communication is HTTPS, the add-ons retrieve data from the products using the product's REST APIs, and those can be permissioned. So you can control what an add-on can access, what it can see, what it can alter. So that's a much more control over what an add-on can do. And it comes with the benefit that maybe you're not so used to the Java Spring OSGI stack, but you prefer to write things in Python or Ruby or something else. And using that Connect approach, where everything is pretty much a standalone process, you have full choice over what kind of tools and stacks and languages you need. So how does this look like? A Connect add-on is actually a very simple construct. It consists of two pieces. The first of it is a very simple descriptor that tells us, which is the Connect plugin within JIRA or Confluence, what functionality you want to surface, how and where. So if you look at this descriptor, there are a couple of metadata elements that are kind of name, key, that are not so interesting. But the descriptor tells us where is your add-on living? Where can we call, where are the endpoints living? Where is your add-on living? So that's kind of the base URL. What kind of authentication do you want? Does your add-on need authentication at all, or maybe not? And the current authentication method that I'm going to talk briefly about later is JSON Web Tokens, also known as JWT or JOTs. And you can tell us you want to be notified of certain lifecycle events, so when the add-on is installed, uninstalled, enabled, and so on. And you say where you would like to be surfaced. Where is this add-on showing up? What's the kind of type? Is it a page? Is it maybe a panel? Is it just a link somewhere? This is driven by these modules, and you tell us where the iframe URL is that kind of populates the content. So this is descriptor describing the different aspects of the add-on, how it's surfaced in JIRA or Confluence. The second part is then to actually have something that listens to those callbacks, for instance, to the installed hook, render something when we hit hello world. That can be as simple as a static HTML page. So if you've been to the Firebase talk just before me, you've seen an example of doing just that. I said everything works through HTTPS, actually. This is a bit of an overview of the options that are available to add-ons. So if you look at the box in the middle, which is an add-on that somebody from Atlassian wrote, which shows some statistics about page views of a specific page in Confluence, this is all surfaced through an iframe. So this is just hitting a page on a server, which kind of renders this content. And that content from the iframe has the option to call REST APIs in the products. It can, of course, load anything that it needs from the add-on server. And optionally, there's also the possibility to call REST APIs in the products from your add-on server. And the product can notify, if you're interested, the add-on through webhook. So whenever a new JIRA issue is created, or a new Confluence page is created, or one is updated, you can listen to those events. So those are kind of the options in terms of communication with the products that you have. That's pretty much Connect 101 in a nutshell. And from here, we go a bit more into this kind of integration scenarios. So when I say add-on, and the distinction between add-on and integration add-on is not so clear-cut, but let me illustrate what I mean by integrations or integration add-ons. So typically, an add-on doesn't have its own user base. It operates on its own data or on data in JIRA. So it's really an extension to the product. It doesn't really have its own standalone functionality. It lives as an extension to the product. Whereas I would see integration add-ons more as a bridge between JIRA or Confluence or another Atlassian product and a third-party application, which can be an in-house application or service that you run in your companies. The nice thing about this bridge approach is that you get all the benefits that I just described for Connect in general for those add-ons in the middle. So you don't need to change the application or JIRA. You control the release cycle of this add-on. You can release new functionality anytime. You can choose your stack. You can scale it independently. So there are some nice characteristics about doing that. However, this would require that whatever bridge service you build, integration service you build, has access remotely to that service or application, say a CRM system that you want to integrate. That might not always be possible, so another option would be, if you have control over the application, given that a Connect add-on is not much more than a couple of endpoints that need to answer to HTTP requests, you can see an add-on as part of a third-party application. That takes away some of the advantages of decoupling the processes, but would give you full access to local APIs in those applications if there's no other way of doing things. So those are kind of two approaches of how you could leverage Connect to integrate applications at a very high level. I want to speak a bit more about the first case, where you have kind of an add-on in the middle. And that's also where the biggest kind of issue that you will have to solve in those cases is always authentication. I'm going to talk mostly about that, because otherwise, as I described, Connect is really simple. It's a descriptor, a couple of endpoints. But in this case, you have the issue that Connect makes authenticated requests to add-ons. What we use there is the JSON Web Token, which is a signed little JSON fragment, which contains the user key, some other information. All of that is signed, so it cannot be tampered with. So it kind of can transport the identity of the user who's currently in JIRA safely to the add-on. You cannot modify that. But then what do you do with that? So you know who the user is in JIRA, but you have no idea how to access this application, which probably has its own user base, which can be totally different from JIRA's. And I want to illustrate a couple of things that you can do here and give you one example of what we actually used for Bitbucket to HipChat. So the simplest approach is to just use a single service account. Something that can be an API key. So if you think about Amazon Web Services, you have like API keys, secrets. It can be an auth token, just something that isn't very user-specific. It's just like application-level authentication. You say, I'm this application, but you don't say who the user is who makes those requests. That works very well for things that are not really permissioned at a granular level. So think about S3, so you just have files there that are public for anyone anyway. The only thing you need there is really just the API key and secret, and you can just communicate with that service. Might work for other applications as well, but definitely not something that is applicable in all situations. So let's see how we use the variation of that service account scheme, but without any pre-shared secrets or kind of hard-coded credentials to integrate Bitbucket and HipChat. When I say integrate Bitbucket and HipChat, I specifically mean sending notifications to HipChat whenever something happens in Bitbucket. So say there's a new commit, in this case the Connect repository. We would like to see a message being sent to HipChat, which shows what actually happened and who did what. So this is a relatively straightforward scenario, which has existed in different incarnations before, but this time we really tried to solve that in a more generic fashion, which will apply to many other integration scenarios as well, and doesn't couple Bitbucket to HipChat. So here's a high-level overview of how that looks like. So we have Bitbucket on one side, HipChat on the other one, the add-on service or the add-on integration add-on in the middle. This add-on has two faces, so it's an add-on for Bitbucket, and it's also an add-on for HipChat, which means it surfaces two of those JSON descriptors that describe what it can do in both systems, and then also allows to reuse a lot of the functionality that was built. So for instance, configuration pages probably look very similar in HipChat and in Bitbucket, and a lot of that can be shared, and it's all surfaced by a single add-on. The other nice thing is that Bitbucket doesn't know anything about HipChat, HipChat doesn't know anything about Bitbucket, they just know about add-ons and Connect. So how does this work a bit in more detail? We've seen the descriptors, so there's these installation callbacks. In this case, the add-on tells HipChat, please call installed with kind of the regular installation payload whenever the add-on is installed into a group in HipChat. And one thing we did, at least for now, is we pre-install add-ons into any group in HipChat. So it's already there. You don't have to press any buttons in the UI. It's a convenience thing that allows to share certain information beforehand. So what happens here is that these colorful circles are representing groups in HipChat. And the little robots are kind of the service accounts, the auth tokens, essentially, that will be used to access HipChat, send messages to HipChat. So an installation, when this add-on gets installed into a group, that group sends pretty much the information, the API token to use to the add-on. And the add-on can build this mapping from groups to tokens to use. The add-on is also installed, can be installed into Bitbucket. If it's installed, the add-on tells Bitbucket, I want to render a configure page. That configure page is rendered totally by the add-on and allows to define mappings between repositories and rooms. So I want to say something happens in, for instance, the Connect repository, so I want to send a message to the Connect HipChat room. And it's pretty much a list of repos to room mappings. On save, this is also persisted back to the add-on. So the add-on has the mappings from repos to rooms, and it has the mappings from groups to API tokens. In the next step, this add-on would also like to be notified by anything that happens in Bitbucket. So if you've seen Connect in JIRA and Confluence, you will recognize this element. It's exactly the same. Connect works very much the same in Bitbucket as it does in JIRA and Confluence. What that fragment means is, please call events with whatever happens whenever there's a commit or pull request, whatever. So if there's a new commit, events is called as part of that event. We have its signs, so we cannot be tampered with. And in the payload, we know the repository. So we can use that repository to look up the room. The room tells us which group it belongs to. We can look up the API token for that group, and we can use that token to send the message to HipChat. So kind of the configuration and installation drives kind of this configuration of pretty much service accounts or auth tokens specifically in this case, dynamically without any pre-configuration. This is also not, in this case this works because we just want to see notifications in HipChat as from Bitbucket. But sometimes you really want to see things as on behalf of a user. Think about an add-on in Service Desk, for instance, that surfaces some information from a CRM system. Maybe there's an upcoming renewal, or you want to know about kind of revenue that this customer generates who opens a ticket. This is all relatively sensitive information, and you want to make sure that only people who have access to that information can see it if it's surfaced in Service Desk. The typical way to do that, relatively well known, is a three-legged auth, typically OAuth. Again, the add-on receives a call from Connect with the JWT token that asks for something and needs to make a call to this CRM system at the same time. So we also keep a mapping in the add-on for specific users, the bearer tokens for those users. If we don't have one, we just send the user through the OAuth dance with the application. So you would sign into the application, grant access to the add-on, you're redirected back. And after that, we can use that token for subsequent calls to the application, and they would all run under the permission set and identity of that user. So those are kind of ways how you can solve those integration authentication challenges and what we've done in Bitbucket. Pretty much all of that is available today. So you can, if you have an idea about how you want to integrate your internal application into JIRA or Confluence, we have a lot of information at connect.atlassian.com. That's the kind of part of developer.atlassian.com. You find all the information about the descriptors, concepts, security in Connect. You can easily try that locally. It's a matter of creating a JSON descriptor, small service. You can run it locally in JIRA. And once you're ready, and you want to deploy that to an internal system within your company, you can create a private marketplace listing. I'm going to talk about that just in a minute. And you would deploy that to a staging environment. You can use on-demand cloud or JIRA or Confluence instance to test it out before you ship it to production. The reason why you need to create a private listing is currently Connect add-ons can only be installed through Marketplace. And you might wonder, why is that necessary? It's just like my private integration add-ons. But you still get a lot of benefits from that because Marketplace keeps track of the versions. It allows you to define where your add-on can be installed. Keep in mind that a Connect add-on surfaces its JSON descriptor publicly. So there's a mechanism in Marketplace to issue tokens for your add-ons, and you could only kind of install the add-on and make it work or kind of license it if you have this private token that allows you to control where this add-on is deployed, even though your descriptor is pretty much public. And yeah, you get the version management, and given that it's a private listing, it won't show up anywhere in the Marketplace. So it's a very easy way to kind of, get started, try it out locally, take it to an on-demand staging environment, and then use it in production in your own instance. So that was pretty much it. I wonder if you got maybe some ideas of how you could leverage Connect to integrate some internal applications. And thanks very much for showing up.
We had just one question on the Confluence questions. If you want to throw it. So what are your challenges to making Connect plugins work on what everybody wants to know?
Right, that's
obviously easy.
Number one question. So Connect, it's not a technical challenge to make Connect run in an on-prem server. We use it internally at Atlassian. We test like that as well. The challenge for us is more like how do we manage Connect going forward with kind of all the different versions that will accumulate over time? How do we keep compatibility? How do we maintain that going forward in a way that helps both us and both you as customers to kind of keep that environment stable, and also for vendors, kind of all the versioning of those add-ons, given that you will deal with a multitude of versions where Connect is installed. So those are the issues that kind of lead to a certain delay in the BTF offering.
All right, let's give it up for Patrick one more time.
Thanks.
Thank you, Patrick.